The Zorathians, a group of tall, scaly aliens with glowing eyes, thought they could do whatever they wanted. They lived on a faraway planet called Zorath, a place covered in shiny blue rocks and tall, twisted trees that looked like they were reaching for the stars. They believed they were the strongest in the galaxy, and no one would dare stand up to them. So, one quiet night, they made a terrible choice. They attacked a small human camp on a dusty, red planet called Arctara, a place where people from Earth were digging up old treasures and learning about the past. The Zorathians swooped in with their sleek silver ships, grabbed 10 human archaeologists, and took them away. They didn't ask questions. They didn't explain why. They just locked the humans in a cold, dark room deep inside one of their hidden bases. No trial, no names, just silence. These archaeologists weren't soldiers or spies. They were scientists who loved history. They carried tools like shovels and brushes, not weapons. They spent their days carefully digging in the dirt, finding old pots, strange carvings, and bits of stone that told stories about people who lived long ago. The Zorathians didn't care about that. To them, humans were weak and unimportant, like tiny bugs they could squash without anyone noticing. They thought the galaxy would stay quiet, that no one would care about 10 missing people from a small planet called Earth. They were sure their plan was perfect, but they were wrong, very wrong. The Zorathians didn't know that the galaxy was like a big, crowded room full of whispers. News travels fast when something bad happens. On planets far and wide, creatures with feathers, fur, or metal skin started talking. They heard about the humans who vanished. Some shook their heads, sad but too scared to speak up. Others sent secret messages through glowing screens, asking what had happened. The Zorathians thought they could keep their actions hidden, tucked away like a secret in a locked box. But secrets don't stay secret forever. Someone was always watching, and someone was always listening. Back on Earth, people were starting to notice something was wrong. The archaeologists had been sending messages home every day, sharing pictures of the strange things they found on Arctara. They sent videos of dusty statues and wrote about funny-shaped rocks that might have been tools from a forgotten time. Then suddenly the messages stopped. No pictures, no words, just nothing. Families waited by their screens, hopping for news. Friends checked their devices, wondering why the archaeologists weren't answering. At first, they thought it was a mistake. Maybe the machines broke, or maybe a big sandstorm on Arctara blocked the signals. But days passed and the silence grew louder. Something wasn't right. On Earth, a woman named Leela sat in her small house, staring at a picture of her brother, Sam, one of the missing archaeologists. Sam loved old things. He would spend hours telling Leela about bones and stones, his eyes shining with excitement. Now he was gone and Leela's heart felt heavy like it was carrying a big rock. She wasn't the only one. Across Earth, other families were worried too. A father named Marcus couldn't sleep, thinking about his daughter, Ava, who was also on Arctara. A young boy named Eli kept asking his mom where his uncle was, but she didn't have answers. The families didn't know exactly what happened, but they knew it was bad. They felt it in their hearts. The Zorathians didn't expect anyone to care. They thought Earth was too small, too far away to matter. They laughed in their shiny meeting rooms, their voices echoing off metal walls. They planned to keep the humans locked up, maybe to scare other planets into obeying them. They thought fear would keep everyone quiet, but fear works both ways. It can make people silent, but it can also make them brave. And Earth wasn't just any planet. It was home to people who didn't give up easily. In a busy city on Earth, a group of people gathered in a tall building. They weren't leaders or kings, just regular people who cared about the missing archaeologists. There was a teacher named Ms. Carter who had taught some of the archaeologists when they were kids. There was a pilot named Raj who had flown ships to Arctara before. And there was Layla, who wasn't going to sit quietly while her brother was gone. They talked in low voices, their faces serious. They didn't have proof yet, but they had heard rumors. Whispers from traders who flew between planets said the Zorathians were behind it. The group decided they needed to find out more. They needed to know the truth. Far away on a trading station that floated in space, a merchant with 6 arms and a long tail overheard something important. He was selling glowing fruits when he heard 2 Zorathian guards talking. They didn't know he was listening. They bragged about the weak humans they had locked up. They said no one would come for them because Earth was too small to fight. The merchant didn't like the Zorathians. They always pushed him around, demanding free things. So he sent a secret message to Earth, telling them what he heard. That message was like a tiny spark, the kind that starts a big fire. When the message reached Earth, it spread fast. People didn't just sit and wait. They started asking questions. Pilots checked their ships ready to fly. Scientists looked at their maps trying to guess where the Zorathians might be hiding the archaeologists. Families like Leela's wrote letters to leaders begging them to do something. The Zorathians thought they could act without anyone noticing, but the galaxy was too connected. Eyes were everywhere. Ships carried news from one star to another. Machines buzzed with chatter. And Earth, small as it seemed, was listening closely. The Zorathians had made a big mistake. They thought humans were weak because they didn't have claws or scales or giant ships. They didn't know that humans had something else, something stronger than metal or fire. Humans had hearts that wouldn't give up. They had minds that could plan and dream. And they had a way of working together, even when things looked hopeless. The Zorathians thought they could hide their crime, but the galaxy was watching. Every planet, every station, every ship was part of a big web, and the news of the missing humans was spreading like a wave. On Arctara, where the archaeologists had been working, the ground still held clues. The humans had left behind their tools scattered in the dirt. A small notebook lay open, its pages flapping in the wind. It belonged to Ava, the archaeologist whose father, Marcus, couldn't sleep. In the notebook, she had written about a strange stone she found, one with carvings that looked like a language no one knew. She was excited, planning to share it with the galaxy. Now that notebook was alone and Ava was gone. But the carvings on that stone held a secret, one the Zorathians didn't understand. It was a clue that would soon change everything. The Zorathians didn't know about the notebook or the stone. They didn't know that one of the archaeologists, Sam, had been studying the carvings before he was taken. He had whispered to his team that the carvings might be a message from a long-lost people, maybe even the ancestors of the Zorathians themselves. The Zorathians thought they were in control, but they had no idea what they had started. They thought silencing 10 humans would keep them strong. Instead, it woke up a planet full of people who wouldn't stay quiet. As the days passed, the Zorathians kept their prisoners in that cold, dark room. The archaeologists sat together, trying to stay brave. They didn't know if anyone was coming for them, but they didn't give up hope. They told stories to keep their spirits high. Ava talked about her father, who used to fly ships across the stars. Sam spoke about his sister, Layla, who always believed in him. They didn't know that Layla, Marcus, and others were already planning, already moving, already fighting to bring them home. The Zorathians thought they had won. They thought no one would care about 10 humans on a dusty planet. They thought the galaxy would forget and Earth would stay silent. But they didn't know Earth. They didn't know its people. The galaxy wasn't just watching, it was waiting to see what Earth would do next. And Earth was ready to answer. The 10 humans taken by the Zorathians weren't just random people. Each one had a story, a family, and someone who cared deeply about them. These weren't soldiers or spies. They were archaeologists, people who loved digging up the past to find old treasures and secrets. They worked on a dusty, red planet called Arctara, looking for clues about people who lived long ago. The Zorathians thought no one would notice they were gone. But they were wrong. Each of these humans had someone powerful in their life, someone who wouldn't let them disappear without a fight. The Zorathians didn't just hurt strangers, they hurt the wrong people. One of the archaeologists was a man named Sam. He had a big smile and eyes that sparkled when he talked about old stones and forgotten cities. Sam wasn't just any scientist. He was the brother of a brilliant linguist named Layla. A linguist is someone who studies languages, even ones that nobody speaks anymore. Leela could read words carved on ancient rocks or written on crumbling paper. She once helped a whole planet understand a message left by their ancestors. Sam and Leela grew up together, always exploring. When they were kids, they'd pretend to find hidden treasure in their backyard. Now, Sam was gone, and Leela wasn't going to sit still. She was already looking at star maps, trying to figure out where the Zorathians took her brother. Another archaeologist was Ava, a young woman who loved drawing pictures of the things she found in the dirt. She had a dad named Marcus, a retired fleet commander. Marcus used to fly huge ships through space, leading teams to protect Earth from danger. He was tough but kind, and Ava was his pride and joy. When she was little, Marcus would tell her stories about flying through sparkling stars and landing on strange planets. Ava wanted to explore those planets herself, so she became an archaeologist. Now Marcus sat in his quiet house, staring at a photo of Ava holding a dusty statue she found on Arctera. He wasn't retired anymore, not in his heart. He was ready to fight for his daughter. Then there was Eli, a young man who wasn't much older than a teenager. Eli was the nephew of a famous engineer named Tara. Tara built machines that could fix anything: ships, computers, even robots. People across the galaxy called her when their technology broke down. Eli looked up to his aunt and wanted to be like her, but he loved history too. That's why he joined the archaeologists on Arctara. He was always sending Tara messages about the cool things he found, like a strange tool made of shiny metal. When Tara heard Eli was missing, she stopped her work. Her hands shook as she thought about her nephew, trapped somewhere far away. She started checking her machines, knowing she'd need them to help bring Eli home. Another of the archaeologists was a woman named Zara. She was quiet but brave, always the first to crawl into dark caves to find hidden artifacts. Zara was the best friend of a hacker named Kyan. A hacker is someone who can sneak into computers and find secrets. Kyan wasn't a bad guy. He used his skills to help people, like finding lost ships or stopping thieves. Zara and Kyan met when they were kids, playing games where they'd pretend to solve mysteries. Zara would dig up clues, and Kyan would figure out what they meant. When Kyan heard his friend was taken, he turned on his computer. His fingers flew over the keys, searching for any sign of where the Zorathians were hiding Zara and the others. There was also a man named Leo, who loved telling jokes to make his team laugh. Leo was the son of a scientist named Dr. Patel. Dr. Patel studied stars and planets, figuring out how they moved and what they were made of. She was so smart that leaders from other worlds asked her for advice. Leo didn't care about stars as much as his mom did. He cared about the stories left behind by people long gone. He'd send his mom pictures of old bowls or broken walls, and she'd smile, proud of her son. When Dr. Patel learned Leo was gone, her calm face turned serious. She started calling her friends across the galaxy, asking for help to find her son. Another archaeologist was Maya, a woman who was great at solving puzzles. She could look at a pile of broken stones and figure out how they fit together to make a statue or a building. Maya was the sister of a pilot named Raj. Raj flew fast ships that could zip through space in a flash. He was known for being fearless, always ready to fly into dangerous places to help people. Maya and Raj were close, always teasing each other about who was braver. When Raj heard his sister was missing, he climbed into his ship's cockpit. He didn't know where she was yet, but he was ready to fly anywhere to save her. Then there was Noah, a kind man who loved teaching his team about the past. Noah was the husband of a leader named Amara. Amara wasn't a president or a queen, but she was someone people listened to. She helped different planets work together, making sure they shared food and supplies. Noah always told her she was the glue that held things together. When Amara heard Noah was taken, she felt like her world was falling apart. But she didn't cry. She called a meeting with other leaders, her voice strong. She wasn't going to let the Zorathians keep her husband. Another archaeologist was a woman named Sophie. She was small but tough, always carrying heavy bags of tools without complaining. Sophie was the daughter of a builder named Carlos. Carlos made homes and schools on planets where people had nothing. He was proud of Sophie, who wanted to learn about old buildings to make new ones even better. When Carlos heard his daughter was gone, he stopped his work. He started talking to his builder friends, planning to use their skills to help find Sophie and the others. There was also a man named Jack who was great at finding hidden things. He could spot a tiny piece of pottery in a pile of dirt from far away. Jack was the brother of a doctor named Lena. Lena saved lives, fixing people who were hurt or sick. She worked on a space station, helping travelers from all over the galaxy. Jack always told her she was a hero, but she said he was the real hero for uncovering history. When Lena learned Jack was missing, she packed her medical bag. She didn't know how yet, but she was ready to help bring her brother back. Finally, there was a woman named Hannah who loved writing stories about the things her team found. Hannah was the best friend of a trader named Milo. Milo flew between planets, selling things like food, clothes, and tools. He was good at talking to people, making them smile and trust him. Hannah and Milo would sit together at night, laughing as she told him about the old stories she found in the dirt. When Milo heard Hannah was taken, he stopped his trading. He started asking other traders what they knew about the Zorathians, gathering bits of information like puzzle pieces. These 10 humans weren't alone. They had families and friends who loved them. They had people who were smart, brave, and strong in different ways. Layla, the linguist, was already studying old Zorathian words, looking for clues. Marcus, the fleet commander, was checking his old ship, making sure it was ready to fly. Tara, the engineer, was building new machines to track the Zorathians. Kyan, the hacker, was sneaking into computer systems, searching for secrets. Dr. Patel, the scientist, was talking to other planets, asking for their help. Raj, the pilot, was plotting a course to Arctara. Amara, the leader, was bringing people together to make a plan. Carlos, the builder, was thinking of ways to break into Zorathian bases. Lena, the doctor, was preparing to help anyone who got hurt. And Milo, the trader, was spreading the word, making sure the galaxy knew what happened. The Zorathians thought they could take these humans and no one would care. They thought Earth was small and weak, a place that didn't matter. But they didn't know about Lila, Marcus, Tara, Kyan, Dr. Patel, Raj, Amara, Carlos, Lena, and Milo. They didn't know that each archaeologist had someone who would fight for them. They didn't know that hurting these 10 people was like dropping a stone in a pond. The ripples would spread, and soon the whole galaxy would feel it. Each of these humans had a life full of love and dreams. Sam wanted to find a lost city. Ava wanted to show her dad a new statue. Eli wanted to make his aunt proud. Zara wanted to solve one more mystery with her friend Kyan. Leo wanted to make his mom smile with a new discovery. Maya wanted to beat her brother in a race across the stars. Noah wanted to help his wife build a better galaxy. Sophie wanted to make her dad's building stronger. Jack wanted to find something amazing for his sister to see. And Hannah wanted to write a story that would make Milo laugh. The Zorathians thought they could erase these dreams, but they didn't know the power of the people who cared. The galaxy was starting to buzz with news. Traders whispered about the missing humans. Pilots shared stories about Earth's strength. Leaders on other planets began to wonder if they should help. The Zorathians thought they were safe, hidden in their shiny bases with their fast ships. But they had made a big mistake. They didn't just take 10 archaeologists. They took the brother, daughter, nephew, friend, son, sister, husband, and daughter of people who wouldn't give up. They hurt the wrong people, and now those people were ready to fight back. The Zorathians thought they had won when they took the 10 human archaeologists. They locked them away in a secret base, believing no one would care. But humans don't give up easily. Back on Earth, and even across the galaxy, people who loved the missing archaeologists started to act. They didn't send angry messages or make loud speeches. Instead, they began to respond with quiet, clever actions. They were like shadows moving in the dark, starting something the Zorathians didn't expect. A Zorathian ship disappeared. A mining station shut down. There were no shots, no warnings. At first, the Zorathians laughed, thinking it was nothing. But something big had started, and they didn't even know it. The first thing that happened was small but strange. A Zorathian cargo ship, loaded with shiny blue crystals from their planet, was flying through a quiet part of space. It was a normal trip, one the crew had done many times. The ship's captain, a Zorathian with sharp claws and a loud voice, was joking with his team. Then suddenly the ship's lights flickered. The engine stopped humming. The screens went black. The crew tried to call for help, but their radios were silent. By the time another Zorathian ship came to check, the cargo ship was gone. No pieces, no clues, just empty space where it used to be. The Zorathians scratched their scaly heads, confused. They thought it was an accident, maybe a broken engine. They didn't know humans were behind it. On Earth, a group of people was already working together. Lila, the linguist and sister of the missing archaeologist Sam, was talking to Kyan, the hacker who was best friends with Zara. Kyan was good at sneaking into computer systems, like a mouse slipping through tiny holes. He sat in a small room filled with glowing screens, his fingers dancing over the keys. Kyan had found a way to mess with the Zorathian ship's computers from far away. He didn't blow it up or hurt anyone. He just made the ship go quiet and drift off course, like a toy boat lost in a big pond. When the Zorathians found it later, it was floating in a distant corner of space, empty and useless. Kyan smiled but didn't tell anyone yet. This was just the beginning. The next thing happened on a Zorathian mining station, a huge platform floating near a rocky asteroid. The station was busy, with machines digging up rare metals that the Zorathians used to build their ships. Workers moved back and forth, loading heavy crates onto transports. Then one morning the machines stopped. The lights dimmed. The cranes froze in place. The workers shouted, trying to figure out what was wrong. They checked the wires and buttons, but nothing worked. The station was completely shut down, like a toy with dead batteries. The Zorathians sent engineers to fix it, but every time they turned the power back on, it shut off again. They didn't know that Tara, the engineer and aunt of the missing archaeologist Eli, was behind it. Tara was on a small space station near Earth, surrounded by tools and blinking machines. She was smart, the kind of person who could build anything or take it apart. Tara had friends who worked on trading ships, and one of them had snuck a tiny device onto the Zorathian mining station during a delivery. The device was small, no bigger than a coin, but it was powerful. It sent a signal that confused the station's computers, making them think they were broken. Tara didn't want to destroy the station. She just wanted the Zorathians to feel stuck, the way her nephew Eli was stuck in their prison. She sat back in her chair, watching a screen that showed the station's power levels dropping to zero. She nodded to herself. This was her way of saying, "You can't take our people and expect us to do nothing." The Zorathians didn't connect the missing ship and the broken station at first. They thought these were just bad luck, like tripping over a rock or losing a key. They laughed in their shiny meeting rooms, their voices echoing off the walls. "Humans," they said, "they're too weak to do this." They didn't believe a small planet like Earth could cause them trouble. But more things started to happen. A Zorathian supply base on a cold, icy moon lost its heat. The workers shivered as the walls turned frosty. They tried to fix the heaters, but the system kept turning off. Somewhere far away, Carlos, the builder and father of the archaeologist Sophie, was behind it. He had learned how the Zorathians built their bases and found a way to mess with their power from a distance. Carlos was working with a team of builders who knew how to take things apart without breaking them. They didn't use bombs or guns. Instead, they used tricks like sending fake signals to the base's computers. The signals made the computers think it was too hot, so they shut off the heaters. The Zorathians on the base were confused and cold, wrapping themselves in blankets while their leaders argued about what to do. Carlos didn't smile or cheer. He was thinking about Sophie, his daughter, who loved digging in the dirt for old treasures. He wasn't going to let the Zorathians keep her locked away. At the same time, other humans were acting too. Raj, the pilot and brother of the archaeologist Maya, was flying a small, fast ship through a busy space lane. Raj was good at moving without being seen, like a bird flying through a storm. He didn't attack anyone, but he dropped tiny devices into space, little machines that floated near Zorathian ships. These devices sent out signals that mixed up the ship's navigation, making them fly in circles or stop moving altogether. Raj knew he couldn't fight the Zorathians directly. Their ships were too big. But he could make them feel lost, the way Maya must have felt in that dark Zorathian prison. Back on Earth, Dr. Patel, the scientist and mother of the archaeologist Leo, was busy too. She studied stars and planets, but she also knew how to track ships across the galaxy. She worked with a team of scientists who watched the Zorathians' movements. They noticed that a Zorathian communication tower, a tall structure that sent messages between their bases, was acting strange. Messages were getting lost or jumbled, like a phone call with bad service. Dr. Patel had found a way to send fake signals to the tower, making it send nonsense instead of orders. The Zorathians didn't know why their messages weren't getting through. They blamed their own machines, not knowing humans were behind it. Amara, the leader and wife of the archaeologist Noah, was doing her part too. She wasn't a fighter, but she was good at bringing people together. Amara called traders, pilots, and engineers from different planets, asking them to help. She didn't tell them everything, just enough to get them moving. Some traders stopped delivering food to Zorathian bases. Others shared secrets about where the Zorathians were hiding. Amara was like the leader of a big team, making sure everyone worked together without causing a big fight. She wanted the Zorathians to feel pressure, like a net slowly closing around them. Lena, the doctor and sister of the archaeologist Jack, was helping in her own way. She worked on a space station where ships stopped for repairs. Lena started talking to the pilots who came through, asking them to spread news about the missing archaeologists. She also slipped tiny trackers onto Zorathian ships when they stopped for fuel. These trackers were so small they looked like dust, but they sent signals back to Lena's team, showing where the ships were going. Lena didn't know if Jack was on one of those ships, but she wanted to be ready. Every signal was a step closer to finding her brother. Milo, the trader and best friend of the archaeologist Hannah, was causing trouble too. He flew between planets, selling things like fruit and tools. But now, he was using his trips to spread confusion. He told other traders to raise the prices of things the Zorathians needed, like metal and fuel. He also passed out fake maps that sent Zorathian ships to the wrong places. Milo was good at talking, making people believe him without asking too many questions. Every time a Zorathian ship ended up in an empty part of space, Milo grinned. He was thinking of Hannah, who loved writing stories. He wanted her to write one more. These actions were small, like pebbles tossed into a pond, But each one made ripples, and the ripples were getting bigger. The Zorathians started to notice that things weren't going their way. Their ships got lost. Their stations stopped working. Their messages didn't reach their bases. They still didn't think humans were behind it. They thought it was bad luck or broken machines. They laughed and said, "We'll fix this soon." But deep down, some of them were starting to wonder. Why were so many things going wrong all at once? On Earth, the families and friends of the archaeologists met in secret. They didn't want the Zorathians to know they were planning something. Leila, Kyan, Tara, Carlos, Raj, Dr. Patel, Amara, Lena, and Milo sat together in a small room. They shared what they had done: the missing ship, the broken station, the jumbled messages. They didn't cheer or brag. They knew this was just the start. The Zorathians had taken their loved ones, and they weren't going to stop until they got them back. The galaxy was starting to talk. Traders whispered about the strange things happening to the Zorathians. Pilots shared stories of ships that vanished. Engineers wondered why Zorathian machines kept breaking. The Zorathians thought they were in control, but they were wrong. Humans weren't fighting with guns or bombs. They were using their brains, their skills, and their hearts. They were working together, piece by piece, to show the Zorathians they had made a big mistake. The Zorathians laughed at first, thinking humans were too small to matter, but the laughter was getting quieter. The missing ship was just one thing. The broken station was another. The lost messages, the cold bases, the wrong maps, all these things added up. The humans weren't loud or flashy. They didn't need to be. They were smart, careful, and determined. Something had started, and it wasn't going to stop until the archaeologists were free. The Zorathians thought they were untouchable. They believed their shiny ships and strong bases made them the bosses of the galaxy. But strange things kept happening. A cargo ship vanished. A mining station stopped working. Messages got jumbled and supplies didn't arrive. At first they laughed, thinking it was just bad luck. But one Zorathian leader, a tall figure named Commander Varkes, started to notice something was wrong. He sat in his gleaming office, surrounded by screens that glowed with information. Reports were piling up, and they showed a pattern. These weren't accidents. It wasn't random. It was a plan. The humans weren't scared. They were getting ready. Varkes was different from other Zorathian leaders. He didn't have the loud voice or sharp claws that many of his kind bragged about. Instead, he was quiet, with eyes that seemed to see everything. He had led Zorathian fleets for years, winning battles against other planets. But now, as he read the reports, his scaly hands tightened. A ship disappearing wasn't a big deal on its own. A station breaking down could be fixed. But when he put all the reports together, they told a story. Something or someone was working against them. Varkes leaned back in his chair, his tail flicking nervously. He had a bad feeling, and he wasn't the type to ignore it. The first report came from a faraway space lane. A Zorathian patrol ship, small but fast, had stopped sending signals. The crew was supposed to check a trade route, but they never came back. When another ship went to look, they found nothing, No wreckage, no clues, just empty space. Varkes thought it was odd but not impossible. Ships sometimes got lost in storms of space dust. But then another report came in. A supply base on a rocky moon had lost power. The lights went out and the machines stopped. The workers there were confused, saying the systems shut down for no reason. Engineers fixed it, but the next day it happened again. Varkes tapped his claws on the table. 2 problems in 1 week felt like more than chance. Then came a third report, this one from a trading post near a bright orange planet. The post was a busy place where Zorathians bought metals and fuel. But suddenly the prices for everything shot up. Traders were charging double, sometimes triple, for things the Zorathians needed. When the Zorathians complained, the traders shrugged and said, "That's just how it is now." Varkes didn't believe them. He sent spies to listen in on the traders' talks, and they heard whispers about humans. The traders weren't scared of the Zorathians anymore. They were listening to someone else, someone who was changing things. Varkes called a meeting with his top advisors. They gathered in a huge room with walls that sparkled like blue glass. The advisors were loud, their voices bouncing off the walls. "It's nothing," one said, waving his clawed hand. "Machines break, ships get lost. Humans are too weak to cause trouble." Another advisor laughed, showing sharp teeth. "They're just dirt diggers, not fighters." But Varkes didn't laugh. He held up a screen that showed all the reports: ships gone, stations dark, prices climbing, messages lost. "Look at this," he said, his voice low but firm. "This isn't bad luck, it's a pattern. Someone is doing this on purpose." The advisors stopped laughing. They leaned closer, looking at the screen. One report showed a Zorathian communication tower sending garbled messages. Instead of clear orders, it sent nonsense, like a child scribbling over a letter. Another report said a fuel depot had run dry because deliveries never arrived. A third report told of a Zorathian outpost where the air systems failed, leaving workers gasping in thin air. Each problem was small, but together they were like cracks spreading across a frozen lake. Varkes pointed at the screen. "These things are happening too often in too many places. It's not an accident, it's a plan." One advisor, a young Zorathian named Siles, spoke up. "But who could do this? No one dares to challenge us." Varkes looked at him, his eyes narrowing. "Humans," he said. The room went quiet. The advisors shifted in their seats, their tails twitching. "Humans," Siles said, almost laughing. "They're from a tiny planet. They don't have big ships or strong armies." Varkes didn't smile. "Maybe they don't need ships or armies," he said. "Maybe they're smarter than we thought." Varkes started digging deeper. He sent his best spies to check every corner of the galaxy. They visited trading posts, listened in on pilot chatter, and watched the stars for strange ships. The spies came back with more news. A trader had seen a human ship near the missing Zorathian patrol. It was small, too small to fight, but it moved fast and disappeared before anyone could follow. Another spy heard pilots talking about a human hacker who could break into any system. A third spy found a tiny device, no bigger than a pebble, stuck to a Zorathian fuel tank. It was sending signals to somewhere far away. Varkes held the device in his hand, turning it over. It wasn't Zorathian. It was human. The more Varkes learned, the more worried he got. He remembered the 10 archaeologists they had taken from Arctara. At the time, it seemed like a simple move to show the galaxy who was in charge. The humans were just scientists, digging in the dirt for old junk. No one would care, the Zorathian leaders had said. But now Varkes wasn't so sure. He thought about the reports again. The missing ship, the broken station, the messed up messages. Each one was like a tiny poke, not enough to hurt badly, but enough to annoy. And the pokes were coming faster now. Varkes went to the Zorathian queen, the ruler of their planet. Her name was Queen Zoran, and she was fierce, with scales that shimmered like fire and a voice that could shake walls. Varkes bowed as he entered her grand hall, where statues of old Zorathian heroes stood tall. "My queen," he said, "we have a problem." He showed her the reports, the device, the stories from the spies. Zoran's eyes glowed brighter as she listened. "Humans," she said, her voice sharp. "They dare to challenge us." Varkes nodded. "They're not fighting like we do. They're quiet, careful, but they're doing something." Zoran didn't like hearing this. She was used to enemies who attacked with ships and lasers, enemies she could see and crush, but this was different. The humans weren't shouting or shooting. They were sneaking, planning, working in the shadows. Zoran slammed her fist on her throne, making the room shake. "Find them," she ordered. "Find out what they're doing and stop it." Varkes bowed again, but inside he wasn't sure it would be that easy. The humans weren't acting like a normal enemy. They were acting like they had a plan, a big one. Back at the Zorathian bases, workers were starting to whisper. They noticed the problems too. A pilot complained that his ship's map sent him to a dead planet with nothing but rocks. A worker at a food storage base said half the crates were empty when they arrived. A guard at a prison base said the locks kept opening and closing on their own, making everyone nervous. The Zorathians were used to being in control, but now they felt like they were losing it. They didn't know who to blame, but some started to talk about humans. "They're tricky," one worker said. "They don't fight fair." Varkes kept studying the reports, trying to guess what the humans would do next. He noticed that none of the problems hurt anyone. No one was killed. No bases were blown up. The humans were being careful, like they didn't want a big fight. This made Varkes even more uneasy. An enemy who fought with lasers was easy to understand. An enemy who fought with tricks was dangerous. He sent more spies, doubled the guards on every base, and told his ships to watch the stars closely. But deep down, he knew it wouldn't be enough. The humans were already one step ahead. On a small Zorathian outpost, a worker found a strange message on a computer screen. It wasn't in Zorathian, it was in a human language. The message was simple: let them go. The worker showed it to his boss, who showed it to Varkis. Varkis stared at the words, his heart beating faster. The humans weren't just causing trouble, they were sending a warning. They wanted their archaeologists back. Varkis thought about the 10 humans locked away in a secret base. He had thought they were unimportant, but now he wondered. Who were these humans? Why were their people fighting so hard for them? Varkis went back to his office, his mind racing. He looked at the stars through a huge window, wondering where the humans were hiding. He thought about Earth, a small blue planet he had never visited. It didn't have many ships or big weapons, but it had something else. It had people who didn't give up. People who were smart, quiet, and ready. The Zorathians had laughed at first, but the laughter was gone now. Varkis could feel it. The galaxy was changing. The humans weren't scared. They were getting ready. And Varkis knew he had to be ready too. The other Zorathian leaders still didn't believe it. They shouted about their strength, their ships, their power. But Varkis saw the truth. The humans were out there working together, making plans. Every missing ship, every broken machine, every lost message was part of something bigger. The Zorathians had taken 10 humans, thinking it would make them look strong. Instead, it had woken up a planet full of people who wouldn't stop. Varkis clutched the tiny human device in his hand, his scales prickling. The humans weren't just fighting, they were winning, one small step at a time. Back on Earth, in a quiet building far from prying eyes, a group of people gathered in secret. There were no flags waving, no cameras flashing, no reporters asking questions. Just a small room with plain walls, a round table, and a group of determined faces. These weren't presidents or generals. They were ordinary people who had lost someone they loved. The 10 archaeologists taken by the Zorathians were their brothers, sisters, children, and friends. They weren't here to talk or argue. They were here to win, to bring their loved ones home. This was Earth's secret plan, and it was just beginning. The room was dimly lit, with only a few lights casting soft glows on the table. Outside, the night was calm, but inside, the air felt heavy with purpose. Layla, the linguist and sister of the missing archaeologist Sam, sat at one end of the table. Her eyes were sharp, her notebook filled with scribbled words from ancient languages. Next to her was Kyan, the hacker and best friend of Zara, his fingers tapping nervously on a small device. Tara, the engineer and aunt of Eli, leaned forward, her tools spread out like a puzzle she was ready to solve. Marcus, the retired fleet commander and father of Ava, stood with his arms crossed, his face hard but calm. Each person in the room had a reason to be there, a person they wanted to save. Leela spoke first, her voice steady. "The Zorathians think we're weak," she said. "They took our people because they thought no one would care, but we're going to show them they're wrong." She opened her notebook and pointed to a page of strange symbols. "I've been studying their language. They're hiding something, and I think it's about the carvings Sam found on Arctara." The others leaned in, listening closely. Leela explained that the carvings might be a key, a way to understand the Zorathians' past. If they could use that knowledge, they could make the Zorathians listen. Kyan nodded, his eyes bright with ideas. I've already gotten into some of their systems, he said. I made one of their ships disappear, not gone, just lost for a while, and I shut down a mining station. He grinned, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew more tricks were coming. Kyan had a plan to keep messing with the Zorathians' computers, making their machines act strange or stop working. He didn't want to hurt anyone. He just wanted to make the Zorathians feel confused and stuck, the way the archaeologists must feel in their cold, dark prison. Tara, the engineer, held up a small metal box with blinking lights. "This is what I used to turn off their power," she said. "It's a signal jammer, small but strong. I can make more." She explained how her devices could sneak into Zorathian bases and shut down things like lights, heat, or even doors. Tara's nephew, Eli, loved machines, and she could almost hear him cheering her on. She wasn't going to let him down. Her plan was to keep the Zorathians busy fixing their broken systems, so they wouldn't notice what the humans were doing next. Marcus, the fleet commander, spoke in a deep, calm voice. "We can't fight them with ships," he said. "Their fleet is too big, but we can be smarter." Marcus had flown ships through dangerous parts of space, and he knew how to move without being seen. He suggested using small, fast ships to drop more of Tara's devices or Kyan's signals. He also wanted to send fake messages to the Zorathians, making them think their own leaders were giving bad orders. Marcus thought of his daughter, Ava, who loved drawing the treasures she found. He wasn't going to let the Zorathians keep her. Dr. Patel, the scientist and mother of Leo, stood up next. She was used to studying stars, but now she was studying the Zorathians. "I've been tracking their ships," she said, pointing to a map on a screen. It showed dots moving across the galaxy, each one a Zorathian ship or base. "They're spread out, but they rely on a few big stations. If we hit those, they'll feel it." Dr. Patel had friends on other planets, and she was asking them to watch the Zorathians too. She wanted to know where every ship went, so the humans could stay one step ahead. Amara, the leader and wife of Noah, was good at bringing people together. She looked around the room, her eyes kind but firm. "We're not alone," she said. "Other planets are starting to help. Traders are raising prices on Zorathian supplies. Pilots are sharing what they know." Amara had been talking to people across the galaxy, quietly asking for support. She didn't want a war, she wanted the Zorathians to feel pressure from every side. If enough planets stopped helping the Zorathians, they'd have to listen. Amara thought of Noah, who always said she could fix anything. She was going to fix this. Raj, the pilot and brother of Maya, leaned back in his chair, his hands behind his head. "I've been flying near their space," he said. "I dropped some of Kyan's devices already. Their ships are getting lost because of me." Raj was fast and fearless, like a hawk soaring through the sky. He wanted to keep the Zorathians chasing shadows, flying to the wrong places while the humans worked on their plan. Raj pictured Maya, who loved solving puzzles. He knew she'd be proud of him for being so sneaky. Carlos, the builder and father of Sophie, was drawing on a piece of paper. "I've been thinking about their bases," he said. "They're strong, but they have weak spots." Carlos was good at making things, but also at taking them apart. He had a plan to mess with the Zorathians' buildings, like making their doors lock them inside or their water systems stop. He wasn't going to destroy anything. He just wanted to make life hard for them. Carlos thought of Sophie, who carried heavy tools without complaining. He wanted her to know he was fighting for her. Lena, the doctor and sister of Jack, spoke softly but clearly. "I'm ready to help when we find them," she said, "but I can do more now." Lena worked on a space station where ships stopped for repairs. She had been slipping tiny trackers onto Zorathian ships so the humans could follow them. She also talked to pilots and traders, spreading the word about the missing archaeologists. Lena wanted the galaxy to know what the Zorathians had done. She thought of Jack, who could find tiny treasures in the dirt. She was going to find him no matter what. Milo, the trader and best friend of Hannah, was the last to speak. "I've been talking to other traders," he said. "We're making it hard for the Zorathians to get what they need." Milo had convinced traders to stop delivering food and fuel to Zorathian bases. He also spread fake stories, making the Zorathians think their own people were causing problems. Milo was good at talking, like a storyteller spinning a tale. He thought of Hannah, who loved writing stories. He wanted her to have a happy ending. The group sat quietly for a moment, thinking about their loved ones. They weren't angry or loud. They were focused. Each person had a job, a piece of the plan. Leela would keep studying the Zorathian language, looking for secrets in their words. Kyan would hack more systems, making the Zorathians' machines act strange. Tara would build more devices to shut down their bases. Marcus would guide ships to drop those devices without being caught. Dr. Patel would track the Zorathians' movements like a detective following clues. Amara would talk to other planets, building a team across the galaxy. Raj would fly fast and sneaky, keeping the Zorathians confused. Carlos would find ways to mess with their buildings. Lena would track ships and spread the word, and Milo would keep the traders on their side. The room had no fancy decorations, no big screens showing battles. It was just people with a purpose. They didn't want to start a war or destroy the Zorathians. They wanted their families back, and they wanted the Zorathians to know they couldn't hurt humans without a fight. The plan was simple but smart. Make the Zorathians feel stuck, confused, and alone. Hit their ships, their bases, their supplies, but do it quietly. Don't let them know it's coming. Don't let them know it's humans. Outside the room, Earth was buzzing with small actions. Pilots were flying to secret spots, dropping devices that would mess with Zorathian machines. Traders were passing messages, telling others to avoid Zorathian bases. Scientists were sharing maps and plans, helping the group stay one step ahead. The galaxy was starting to notice. Other planets heard about the missing archaeologists and the strange things happening to the Zorathians. Some planets sent quiet messages to Earth, offering help. Others watched from afar, wondering what would happen next. The group in the room knew they couldn't do this alone. They needed more people, more ideas. Amara suggested reaching out to a group of traders who flew near Zorathian space. They could carry messages and devices, spreading the plan further. Raj offered to train other pilots to fly like him, fast and hidden. Tara said she could teach engineers to build her jammers so they could hit more bases. Kyan promised to share his hacking tricks with others who knew computers. Everyone had something to give, and they were ready to share it. As the meeting ended, the group made a promise. They wouldn't stop until the archaeologists were free. They wouldn't shout or brag. They would work in secret like a team solving a big puzzle. They thought of Sam, Ava, Eli, Zara, Leo, Maya, Noah, Sophie, Jack, and Hannah locked away in a dark Zorathian base. Each person in the room pictured their loved one holding on to hope. They didn't need flags or cameras. They didn't need loud speeches. They had each other and they had a plan. The Zorathians thought they were in control, but they didn't know about this room. They didn't know about Leela's notebook, Kyan's hacks, Tara's devices, or Marcus's ships. They didn't know about Dr. Patel's maps, Amara's allies, Raj's flights, Carlos's tricks, Lena's trackers, or Milo's stories. They thought Earth was small and weak, but Earth was awake. The people in that room weren't just fighting for 10 archaeologists. They were fighting for everyone who had ever been hurt by someone stronger. They were quiet, but they were ready, and they were going to win.